WP. You are immortal, and death has been trying for centuries to claim your soul. Not because he's frustrated by your immortality, quite the opposite. He just wants someone to talk to who understands immortality. Written by What the Prompt. You'd think immortality would get easier after a few centuries, that eventually you'd stop noticing how everything and everyone changed except you. That maybe, just maybe, you'd grow numb to the loneliness, to the endless years ticking by with no end in sight. But it never really gets easier. It's this quiet ache, like a splinter buried too deep to pull out. You get used to it, sure. You learn to live with it. But it never goes away. You never stop noticing how everyone around you fades, how their lives burn out like candles being snuffed out by time, by circumstance, by things you can't control. And then there's death. Death, who's been following you around longer than you care to admit. At first, you thought he wanted you. That he was trying to claim you, drag you somewhere you weren't ready to go. You kept slipping through his fingers, and he kept coming back, over and over, like a stray that wouldn't leave you alone. It used to be almost funny, a game of cat and mouse. But somewhere along the way, you realized that it wasn't about you dying. It was never about that. The first time you really talked, it was on a night so still it felt like the world itself had paused. It was just the two of you. You felt it before you saw him. The air thickened, like something heavy had dropped right onto your chest. Not pain, not quite, but something worse. Something that settled deep, a weight you couldn't explain. And there he was. Death. He didn't try to take you this time. He just stood there, a little awkward, like someone who wasn't sure if they were welcome. He looked like he didn't know how to start. You know, he said after a while, his voice rough. I've talked to a lot of people, over the years. You didn't answer. You just stood there, watching him, waiting. They're all... He paused, searching for the word. Busy, regretting things, talking about the people they miss, the chances they didn't take. It's all meaningful, I guess, in their own way. But it's always about them, about their loved ones, about what they're losing. He shifted slightly, scratching at his sleeve absent-mindedly, a gesture that almost felt human. I can't stay long with them, he added. The longer I talk, the worse they get. That's just what happens around me. I'm not really built for company, you know? People feel it when I'm close. Something heavy, like they can't breathe right. Like there's a stone sitting on their chest. He gave a dry, humorless chuckle, like he didn't really want to be explaining all this. I don't even have to say anything. They just know. You swallowed, trying to find your voice. Then why keep trying? He looked at you, and in his gaze you could feel the weight of centuries, the exhaustion, the weariness of someone who had seen everything, who had watched the world change again and again without ever changing himself. Because, he said, his voice softer now, you're different. You're the only one who isn't running out of time. Aside from me, that is. There was no anger in his voice. No blame, just this hollow, tired kind of hope. You understand what it's like, he continued, the words coming out slow, like he was trying to make sense of it for himself. To keep going, to watch everything around you, change, fade, break apart, and you just keep going, because what else can you do? He shrugged, like it didn't matter, but you could hear it in his voice. It mattered. It mattered a lot. I've tried talking to others, he said, looking off into the distance. But they're scared. They don't get it. They just see me and think of the end. But no one ever thinks about what comes after the end. What's left for me? You swallowed thickly, unsure what to say. How do you comfort death itself? How do you make sense of something that big? I didn't realize, you said finally, your voice quieter than you meant it to be. I thought you were just the finish line. He smiled then, but it was a tired, lopsided thing that barely touched his face. There was nothing there. No warmth, no light, just emptiness. The kind of smile you get when you're too worn out to fake anything. "I'm more like the guy sweeping up after the race," he said, almost wistfully. "And after a while, it gets real damn quiet." You stood there, feeling the familiar weight of his presence. Heavy, unsettling. But now it wasn't fear. It wasn't dread. It was something else. Something you couldn't quite put your finger on. Maybe loneliness recognized loneliness. For the first time in centuries, you didn't feel the urge to turn away. "You want to talk?" you asked, the words slipping out before you could second-guess them. He blinked, almost startled, like he hadn't expected you to offer. His expression softened, just for a moment. "Yeah," he said, his voice quieter now. "Yeah, I do." And just like that, the weight in your chest eased. Not completely, but enough. You sat down on the cold ground, not sure why, but it felt right. Death joined you after a moment, folding himself into a tired slump beside you. There was something peaceful about the way he sat there, like he had finally found somewhere he didn't have to constantly be on guard. And for the first time in a long time, the silence between you wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't an end. It wasn't the beginning of anything new either. It was just the two of you, sitting there in the stillness. And then it hit you. He had been waiting for someone to ask him, just once, what he needed. The twist? The reason he looked at you with that strange, knowing look. You recognized it now. His gaze, that lingering weight. There was something familiar about him. Something in the way he talked, in the way his tired smile barely flickered. You couldn't place it. Not quite. But you felt it. A sense of recognition tugging at the edges of your mind. Something buried deep that you couldn't quite pull free. You said slowly, your voice trailing off. "Do I know you?" He didn't answer right away. He just looked at you, his face unreadable before he finally gave you the faintest of shrugs. "Maybe," he said quietly. "Maybe you do, but you won't remember. Not yet." You felt a chill run through you, but you didn't ask any more questions. You didn't need to. Not right then. The weight of his presence didn't feel so heavy now. The silence between you felt less oppressive somehow. There was still a lot you didn't understand. But for now, that was enough. You sat together in the dark, not saying anything more, but the connection between you felt real in a way that words never could. And the truth, whatever it was, remained locked away, lingering between you both, a secret that time might one day reveal.